Alright guys, got another bag from China from somewhere. Not really sure what this is. I don't think I was expecting anything. It just says handle on the little manifest deal. So I know I got a grip in one of the last packages, but that should all be accounted for. I'm not sure what this could be. Okay. This was mentioned to me quite a while ago, actually, before the last order or two that was sent. This is the some kind of hammer, big hammer, happy hammer, hammerman kit that is auto pusher kit for a Stryfe, but it's all a single drop-in unit as opposed to being like a little piece up here. It's got the switch plate and all that. Switch guide drops on there and all nice and cute. But the catch with this one is that not only does it have kind of a sleek looking little trigger there, that's kind of neat. Put a little zoom on that bad boy. Oh, that's the wrong way, dang it. Yeah, kind of a nice curvaceous trigger there, that's cute. But it has a Stephan pusher, or half-length pusher, which is, looks a little warped in the picture here. That might straighten up though. Interesting thing, I thought this was going to be a printed kit. This seems to be injection molded some kind. It's got some kind of not awful, especially well, probably no worse than Hasbro's mold lines here. I'm not sure if that's going to affect the travel. Might have to dress that up with a little file or something. Which is kind of nice, being a molded piece. People having concerns over the gears breaking on printed pieces I've seen. So let's see, let's assume this is the return spring for the trigger, wire, cute little switch, and a spongy little stocks factory style switch. For the rev trigger maybe? There's no supporting paperwork, I don't believe. Okay, might have to do a little research on that. So okay. Oh, that's a pretty impressive little gearbox in there. Don't know if you can pick that up. There's a lot going on in there. Not just the you know, a pinion and worm gear or something. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Boy, lots of a lot of stuff going on. Okay, there we go. There's the pusher guy. So he goes like that. That's actually a pretty compact little kit. A little recessed spot there for the return spring. I assume you use the stock return spring. Gears seem to mesh up fairly well. Molding on the gears seems to be nice and clean. No casting flash or any mold lines or anything on there. Yeah, the plastic doesn't feel. You know, it's got a little wiggly there, but it doesn't feel like it's gonna break wiggly. And as considering that this isn't really in a really load-bearing area, that's not such a bad deal. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to. Guess that means I'm building an auto Stryfe. Cool. No telling what the specs are in this motor, or if it'll be compatible with other motors. At least it has a separate cover, so that you can change out the motor if you want. But you might be able to be sneaky. I don't know what's going on. There's a little slot here. Let's take a quick peek just for the future. Not knowing if you'll be able to upgrade the motors. You hate to have to do too much cutting on that, especially, like I said, there's already some existing thinness of material. Okay, it might be a bit of a chore to fit a aftermarket motor in there, just because it is so huggy around there. Can we get more zoom? Oh no, that's all the zoom we get. Yeah, there's not a. If you plan on using a aftermarket motor, you probably have to really be dedicated to it. So we'll see what everybody does with that later as more and more people get a hold of these. So we'll just try to sneak that guy back together. All right. No real indication of what wire goes where, so there'll be a little trial and error there. But yeah, let's see what we got. This guy will go, like here somewhere. That guy's going in there, and this guy's going to go right below, and assume right like that. Nope. If this guy's up here, then means he's got to be on this side. So that means something like that. I'm confused. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on. because that never works well. So yeah, we'll just play it cool then. Maybe I'll just get a Stryfe out and see how this thing stacks up. We'll look at see if it's designed to go off of stock voltage or if it'll handle a 2S or whatever. I guess I'll dig out a Stryfe. Okay, I have a Stryfe here. I took the loosened screws, and now let's take a look. That's a really old mod. Huh? Might be kind of interesting. Trying to tie into that. In fact, this, as I recall, is stock Cajun wheels with honey badgers, I think, and that was when honey badgers first came out, before really available cages were even a thing. So this thing could use quite a bit of upgrading. This might be just the first step for this guy. So okay, let's get the old trigger and everybody out of here. So we can say trigger guy must go here like that, which means this guy must go. Okay, there's that and that. That locates there, and that locates there, and just flies right on there. Okay, there seems to be a issue with the clip nails. Where the little thermistor deal mounted. So I don't know if you have to trim off the whole darn thing, or I'm just going to trim off this little tab thing that kind of located it. We'll try again. And yeah, it still landed on top of the whole mount. So I'm going to go ahead and lop that whole thing off. So this isn't a total drop-in. There's a bit of modifying. Not that there's anything really substantial there, but some people don't like having to cut stuff. So does that cure all of our ills? Still, it's awful snug, unless I'm doing something wrong. That'd be embarrassing if I was doing it wrong. Everything seems to fit though. You got looks like a screw there, and screw there, or holes anyway. But, that's where confusion sets in. Okay, I'm assuming that goes like that, so that means this guy goes first. But, why is it not wanting to? Is it supposed to go? Okay, first thing I'm noticing, there's little tiny ridges on the sides of this post that are just designed to be kind of guides, just to make up some of the gaps, so just for the way this travels. And so where this has a lot of room, they're apparently going for a much stiffer interference fit almost. Up here at the top, there's a little bit of room and it works real nice, but down here where it apparently needs to fit, there are these little tiny ribs. So, and I'll try to get a picture of those to kind of show you what's going on. They're very, very slight, and I think there might be a slight taper to this little post as well, because, yeah, it's just a bit too snug. I guess that's up to you to decide whether you want to just file out this or just trim this. I would probably lean towards trimming that. Interesting that they went with a different fit, because like I said, with the stock piece in here, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but with this piece in, it goes down to where those ridges are, and then it's kind of a forced fit. So, okay, well, we'll trim those down. Okay, so already from the perspective of somebody looking for a drop-in kit, this is less than awesome. I was just with how clean this kit was looking, you know, being all one uniform piece and stuff, and you know, well made. I was hoping it would just be a drop-in. So this is kind of not really a negative, because I don't mind having to modify stuff generally, but this was, like I said, it's kind of too bad having such a good-looking kit that has to be modified to that extent, at least so far. So there, I just trimmed it. It's just a tiny, tiny bit. It was an interference fit before, but just barely trimming those off gives it enough to where it's not loose and wiggly, but it still moves nice and freely, which is nice. So that guy goes there. This guy goes there. Let's put this guy There. The spring, of course, makes the auto Stryfe kits make the clackety-clack noise, which is really cool. So this guy sits like that and that. Okay, another thing I'm noticing, there's this ridge here, this little line here, that this piece apparently is supposed to sit, it acts like it needs to sit above, but it sits just on top. Like if you drop the piece straight on, line it up real nice and pretty, and then drop it on, it wants to sit on top of part of that little ridge, like on top this way, but it won't go down far enough. And so you have to kind of push it up just a bit. Because there is if you look at this guy, there's this line here that drops down. I don't know if there's a difference in later model Stryfes that this piece is different, because it looks like it should just hug right in there. But there's about like a quarter of an inch or so that it's not fitting just right. So that's, But it's real close. I mean, this guy here looks pretty good. This guy here wants to go down further, and then there's this piece here. It looks like it lays on top of this. But if you let it sit on top, then it just kind of floats there, and it's all goofy. But then if you just pop it up over the top, then everybody seems to line up the way they're supposed to. So, interesting. Let's put this guy in real quick, just so we're a little pushy button action there. A little bit nervous whether to trim this guy or trim this guy or trim it at all, or just kind of force it in there. I think go ahead and stick this guy here, and this guy there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And see how they interact. Yeah, just a little bit of encouragement over the top there seems to make that guy happy. A little bit of rubbing on this guy. Is he rubbing on the back of the trigger or the motor assembly? Okay, there's a bit of a ridge there. Is that okay, yeah, it's just catching, kind of going to click. Yeah, just catching this little ridge. Looks like just a piece of the just a molding seam. So let's see, I hope that's not intentional. It looks like it's just a issue with the molding process, which there again is kind of a bummer. We'll go ahead and just file that down real quick. At least give that just kind of soften the edge a little bit. Okay. Just a couple seconds with the file, and we'll see if that helps. There again, for drop-in kit, I don't want to have to do this much work. I mean, I don't mind modifying things or building something, but if you have a kit like this, I shouldn't have to do that. Okay. A little bit more. Don't know much about the company. Maybe they're a newer company. So maybe they're just learning a little bit still as far as tolerances and stuff like that. That's nice. That's nice. I like that. I like that. Okay. Now back to business. Okay. Got a nice trigger there. Real quick, I'm going to test that because the trigger looks really neat, and it's got a nice like one thing I've always not liked about the Stryfe trigger is that the face of it is just flat, and so when you stick your finger on it, you got this corner kind of, it doesn't like cut into you, but it's just annoying and dumb. Whereas this one here has a nice kind of rounded face to it, which has a little bit of a molding seam, which I'll be trimming down a little bit and sanding smooth, but at least the shape looks good. That's kind of pretty. That's kind of neat. There, I'll put a paper towel behind it. Kind of show that off a little bit. Nice, nice shape. Oh, oh, wow. Oh, 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 hey. Wow, that is nice. Wow. Okay. Wow. That is just a nice. It's like the Stryfe here's got kind of a more rather vertical, really gradual shape to it. This has got a more of a aggressive hook to it, kind of coupled with that rounded face. It is stylish looking. It is very nice. You cannot deny it. It looks nice. But wow, that is a nice feeling trigger. Boy, if they made replacement triggers, just the triggers themselves, I would like that. That is going to be a pleasure to shoot people. Wow. Okay. Back on task. Okay. So let's get this clean nonsense out of here and go back to the workbench. So it gives us the kind of gunky, spongy switch, which I don't know what the heck you're supposed to do with. Then it gives you this nice little marker switch here, which I guess does it go as a mount down like that? And it goes, that's actually pretty slick. For some reason I was expecting it to mount kind of that way, kind of like, we tend to do. But okay, upside down, and then this goes, and does it, I was going to say, does it hold itself in place just from the shell holding it in? Because there's no way to retain it. It fits on these, and it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a real snug fit, but it, Okay, another fitment issue. We zoomed in still? Dang, need more zoom. There's a little raised bump right here, this little corner, that looks like it should fit right underneath the switch, but you put the switch on and the corners bump into each other. So I think, I'm going to check that to make sure I'm not doing something dumb. You put it that way or something, I don't know. There's just this little corner here that sticks up and keeps the switch from seating in all the way. It still makes contact, so I'm going to hold off. Maybe that's some kind of a spacer thing as far as the fitment with the shell. I'm going to assume that when you put the shell on, the shell kind of helps hold it in place, because that would be, I guess, neat, because then it's still serviceable. You can take it apart. I think I would have preferred a couple screws and some threaded holes there or something to connect that to. It's not a bad draw. It's still a significant draw, but it's not nearly as long as like the regular Stryfe full draw. So let's I guess we're ready to play with wiring. Okay. So I'm going to assume that you can just come out of the existing power into the switch, out of the switch into the motor, and back in. So, I guess it's wiring time. Okay, I've reached a point here. I've been playing with this for like a couple hours now, actually, trying to get it to work. There's something in the gearbox that basically it binds up. Like, I got it working for a while and everything was great, and was testing it, and the pusher would just bind up. And so I'd get in there and work it loose, and it would work for a couple times. But if you hold it down and have it constantly cycling, it's fine. But if it happens to if you let off and it happens to park in just the right spot, there's some tension inside the gearbox that is just enough tension to where the pusher motor doesn't have enough torque to push through. I don't know the specs on the motor or anything. Maybe the situation wouldn't be there if you put a bigger motor in, but there's really not a whole lot of room to work with if you're to swap the motor. And besides, I mean, if you can't get the original components to work, then there's really no sense in upgrading it in the first place. I was excited about this being a molded, injection molded piece and a very clean setup, but I got in here and I did a little bit of trimming and filing and on a few different things, and I cannot get it to work appropriately. Like I said, once it's moving, it goes pretty good, but if you let off and it happens to stop in just the right spot, there's just enough tension in there, and you can tell, like right there, it's a snug spot, and it's pretty good, but there's just every once in a while you get a spot that's just really snug that you have to push through. and the motor and the gearbox assembly just doesn't have enough poop to get all the way to get it all the way through. So I had originally intended to go ahead and do whatever the heck I had to do to get it to work and install it and review it, but I realized that's not a product review. That's a matter of principle, saying I'm not going to let this thing defeat me. And that's not what this is about. This is about, is this a good product? And honestly, I can say that this is a pass it up type. I don't know if I just got a lemon or what, but just looking at the construction of things, the fit and finish isn't good. Just even the you can see the tooling marks from the mold. It looks pretty rough. There's that spot on the trigger area here, the whole interface area has some issues. There's some clearance issues on the motor cover as far as how it fits. The motor actually kind of wiggles around in it. I mean, it's held in place on the bearing snouts, on the end bell and everything, and on the front, but on the front collar. But it's able to twist around a little bit, and I don't think the motor has enough torque to actually work around as you're using it, but it's just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that it doesn't give me confidence using this, which is really, really a bummer. I was really excited about this kit. Like I said, having the ability to just swap in a single part to convert to half lengths, especially now that we've seen forward-mounted katana adapters, and also I think Worker has the forward-mounted regular size, full size half-length dart magazines and stuff like that. That would have been a really slick kit to be able to just swap in. But yeah, aside from the fit and finish, there's aspects about the kit that I like. I like that it's molded and everything. That's cool. I like the drop-in ability and everything being, a single unit more or less, instead of having different pieces that mount in different places. I like just how the trigger setup, or the trigger switch setup is, and everything. But yeah, I cannot. I don't feel I'm being outsmarted by the component. I've had this thing apart dozens of times, and getting a chance to look at it closer and closer as I'm troubleshooting. And there's just so many things that, like I said, that there's tooling marks from the mold and stuff that are just really obvious. It just looks. It just feels very cheap. I mean, the plastic's not the best quality in the world. Yeah, it's not the worst, obviously, but it's just a lot of way too much casting flash, and there's just some other molding issues and stuff. And just looking at some of the gears, I wonder if maybe I have some inconsistency on the teeth of the gears. Might be causing part of the problem too. But as I've been testing and holding the motor assembly up and watching it, the gears kind of move around a little bit. Like, I think one or more might be a little warped, but they go pretty good. But then you notice one of them kind of tends to rock around a little bit weird, and so I don't know if it's a matter of the hole being drilled off center a little bit, or not drilled, but molded a little off axis a little bit, or if one or more of them are actually warped from, I don't know. It's going to be a bear to get this thing to work in the first place, and I might actually abandon it. Just one of those things where it's really not worth it when I can just buy a component. I mean, people have been buying up that XSW kit and that Select Fire one and having good luck with it. This is not something that you can just drop in and go, and it's not something that you have to do some scratch building or modifying to get it to work. It just seems like a low quality kit, unfortunately, and that, like I said, it really bums me out. And honestly, the thing I'm bummed out about the most is this trigger. This is an awesome trigger. This is the most comfortable trigger I've used, I think, on any blaster ever. I mean, I had a chance to get the shells together and was playing with this trigger. If you could get the kit for a couple of bucks just to get the trigger, I am going to save this trigger and use it in something. I will buy another automatic auto pusher kit, and I will find a way to make this trigger work. This is just it's just an incredibly comfortable trigger. It mounts the actual trigger surface. The finger interface surface is back just a little bit further, so it gives you a little more room for your finger in the trigger well. It has a little bit shorter stroke, just the way the switch mounts and stuff. It gives a really, really nice feeling trigger pull, but just the shape and the contour, it's aside from just that mold line down the middle, just a few seconds with a file or even just some sandpaper or something just to kiss that off. But just the shape and just the feel of the trigger is just, great. So yeah, really the only saving grace of this whole operation is that awesome trigger. The actual unit itself, unfortunately, I would pass on. I don't know if the gear, if the teeth are the same for other available kits. If you could just use, if you happen to have one of these kits, whether you bought it and then realized it doesn't work very good, or maybe you had good luck and it was fine and I'm just getting a lemon. I don't know. I don't know if there's any interchangeability with this component itself. If you wanted to convert your existing auto kit to half lengths, I cannot say. Or if you wanted to just use, if you can't swap this piece out because it is a molded piece instead of printed like the other ones. So, but no, the actual gearbox itself just has so many faults. I cannot make any excuses for it. I liked the idea. I was really excited about it, and also the fit issue here that I came across, where it actually mates up to the inside of the shell, just doesn't fit right. And when you do mount it, the back end, there's really no, there's nothing that keeps the back end of the kit mounted solid. It kind of floats and moves around a little bit, which I guess would be okay. But yeah, too many negatives, too many major negatives for this one. So for the big hammer, sledgehammer, I cannot remember. I will post it, of course, in the title, obviously, and up here. Yeah, I will pass unless I hear something else about, that mine was a lemon, everybody else is having a good time with it or something. I'll continue to play with this, I think, but like I said, I've been fighting this thing for several hours now, just trying to get the gearbox itself to work. Everything else seemed to drop in place just fine, but it's just the actual gearbox itself just has so many issues that I cannot excuse it. So I'm going to say that unfortunately this kit is a pass for me, except for this trigger. Man, if somebody wants to reproduce this trigger, like if somebody wants to buy this kit, just use the trigger and then like model it and print it or cast it or something, oh my gosh, this is just such an amazing trigger. That's a good feel. So trigger, yes. Kit itself, no. So sorry I didn't have better news for you. Like I said, I was really excited and I really hoped I would have good news for you, but unfortunately you can't win them all. So hopefully I'll have something cooler for you next time. But anyway, wishing blue skies and green lights to you and yours, and may all your troubles be teeny weeny ones.